Welcome to the 700 Club. Donald Trump has named Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his pick for vice president. And if he's elected, Senator Vance would be one of the youngest vice presidents in history.
At yesterday's convention, Trump received a highly charged emotional welcome, with many praising him for his bravery. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener has more.
A triumphant return to the campaign by Donald Trump and his first appearance since surviving an assassination attempt. Last night, he became the official GOP nominee for the third time.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
A dramatic scene as former President Donald Trump arrives at the convention. Republicans from across the country are descending on Milwaukee, many praising Trump for his bravery.
Even in the most perilous moment this week, his instinct was to stand and to fight.
And thanking God for saving the former president when a gunman opened fire at a rally in Pennsylvania.
On Saturday, the devil came to Pennsylvania holding a rifle, but an American lion got back up on his feet and he roared.
Earlier in the day, Trump became the official GOP nominee. Sons Eric, Don Jr., and daughter Tiffany casting all 125 delegates from Florida for their father, putting him over the top in the roll call of states.
The great state of Iowa proudly cast all of its 40 votes for President Donald J. Trump.
Trump named Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. As vice president, J.D. will continue to fight for our Constitution, stand with our troops, and will do everything he can to help make America great again, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform.
And elect Donald Trump in 2024. God bless you, sir.
At 39, Vance, once a vocal Trump critic, is now one of his strongest defenders. If elected, he would be one of the youngest vice presidents in history.
I think it sends a signal to our younger voters that we care about you.
Elected to the Senate 2 years ago, the Marine veteran served in Iraq and graduated from Yale Law School. A former venture capitalist, his memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, was a bestseller. Vance discussed his 2019 conversion to Catholicism in an interview last year.
We believe in the core truths of the Catholic Church, and we are devoted to it, not because it's always, again, perfect, but because its message is fundamentally correct, and it's the best way that we represent the gospel in a very broken modern world.
The convention's opening day sets up a week talking about Republican issues. The theme of the night, Make America Wealthy Again. However, with Trump's brush with death still fresh, the overriding message is for unity in the party and in the country.
We must unite as a nation. We must show the same strength and resilience as President Trump and lead this nation to a greater future.
President Biden criticized Trump's choice for VP, calling Vance a clone of the former president. Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Well, our chief political analyst, David Brody, joins us now. You called it right. You picked Senator Vance. Well, what's the reaction to the choice?
Overall, obviously very positive inside MAGA world, though, let's be honest, and we'll get to this in a moment, there are some grumblings from grassroots MAGA conservatives who are concerned about some of J.D. Vance's past statements about Trump. But overall, a very, very popular pick. And why exactly, Gordon? Well, he has economic populism policies, just like Donald Trump. He has more of that isolationist, non-interventionist, call it whatever you want, outlook on foreign policy. So this feels to me, Gordon, like a MAGA mantle legacy pick, someone that Donald Trump sees as carrying on the MAGA mantle for another generation. He's 39, going to turn 40 in just a few weeks. And so that's pretty much where we're at this point with J.D. Vance. There's a lot more to unpack, but that's kind of the highlights, if you will.
Well, let's talk about some of the highlights, and one in particular is that he called himself a never Trump guy, and it's curious to me. Trump is kind of famous for not forgiving. So here he is picking a never Trump guy as his running mate, and I assume the presidential candidate for the Republican Party 4 years from now. So what changed the opinion?
A meeting back in 2021, finally, a meeting between the two, where J.D. Vance walked into a meeting with him at Mar-a-Lago, and let's just be frank about it, said, "I'm sorry." He apologized. He said, "Wait a minute, hold on. I said all that stuff about you. Absolutely, I did." By the way, the things he said about him, called him a fraud, an idiot, reprehensible. Said he was a never Trumper. Said all of that, and then said to Trump, "I was wrong about all of it. I've gotten to know you, and you're not that person." And then, of course, on policies as president, he was just, as J.D. Vance would say, amazing. And so he was a convert to the cause. And quite frankly, Trump loves nothing more than a convert to the cause. That's the whole point. And I think that's the way you'll see Republicans, or at least MAGA world, spin this, which is to say, look, yeah, he said that stuff about Trump, but then he saw the light. And, you know, I wish more Americans would see the light, would be their narrative going forward. And it seems, at least in this election, that more Americans are realizing that indeed Donald Trump is not exactly the media caricature that they're painting of him. And J.D. Vance is living proof of that.
Well, if I'm on the campaign staff of Joe Biden, and I'm not, but if I were, I would absolutely take every one of these statements and use it. And I would particularly use it if there's going to be a vice presidential debate, which this election year there certainly ought to be one. I would use that all day, every day. Is there any fear on the campaign trail that this is going to come back and haunt them?
Well, I don't know about fear, but they know that those clips will be used. And you're right, Gordon. Neither you or I are a Biden surrogate or a campaign advisor the last time I checked. But this is a no-brainer. This is a 30-second made-for-TV campaign ad by the Biden campaign. And let's also remember, based on what happened over the weekend in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the assassination attempt and this idea that it's time to lower the rhetoric, well, Biden can use J.D. Vance's words against Trump and say, hey, I'm not saying anything divisive about Donald Trump, but his vice president nominee sure is. I think that's probably what you're going to see. Well,
what else can you tell us about the background of Senator Vance? It seems that he's been on a rocket ship in coming to prominence just so quickly at just age 39. So what's in his background?
Well, he's got a great story. I mean, he came from a low socioeconomic background in Ohio, that Rust Belt area. His life story was made into a movie, Hillbilly Elegy. Glenn Close starred in the film. It was a New York Times best-selling book. It really is kind of a rags to riches story, because he gets out of that situation, and boy, it was dysfunctional as can be, and then goes on. Long story short, but he goes into the Marines. He eventually goes into venture capitalism. He goes to Yale Law School, and here he is as a U.S. senator. It really is a remarkable story. And so that's kind of the background from a faith perspective, Gordon. He grew up in kind of what he calls a conservative evangelical world, a Protestant world, but he didn't really take his faith very seriously. At one point, he became what he calls an angry atheist. And then in 2016, he converted to Catholicism. He says St. Augustine was the reason he did it, in essence, because he felt like St. Augustine provided that intellectual approach that he needed to kind of get there, if you will, which is interesting. He says his public policy is based on his social Catholic teaching that he hears about all the time. And I think what's important here is that J.D. Vance is a very, very smart guy. And because of that, Donald Trump, what he saw in J.D. Vance was a guy that can communicate the MAGA message in a very smart, intellectual type way to the masses. And I think that was a big part of the selling point as well.
What can you tell us about his wife? They met at Yale Law School, and is she going to be active on the campaign trail with him?
Well, I think she'll be relatively active, but probably not as active as others possibly. And here's why: because she is of Indian descent. They have 3 children, And I think, and she's also, she's a partner in a law firm there, so she's very successful in her own right. I don't think they're going to necessarily play all of that up. But having said that, what J.D. Vance does do, Gordon, from an electoral standpoint, is help in the Rust Belt states. I'm going to try to say that 5 times fast. I should be able to say it by now, by the way. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Those are the states that J.D. Vance will help in. And I know maybe Donald Trump doesn't need all that help right now because he seems like he's been on a glide path to the presidency. But you know what? A few months is a long time in politics. You never know. Bottom line is he'll help in those Rust Belt states. My goodness, I'll work on that during the break.
Well, you're certainly right. In politics, 3 months is a very long time. I thought last week that we'd never get off the story of Joe Biden and the debate, and here we are, way off the story, and things have absolutely changed. Well, David, thanks for joining with us, and again, you're going to have a very busy election year.
Yes, we will.
All right. In other news, spectators at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania warned police about a man on the roof for 90 seconds before he opened fire. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. The investigation has learned that people watching the rally spotted a man climbing onto the roof of the building and tried to warn police. 86 seconds went by before he started shooting. An officer did try to stop the shooter, but fell when the suspect pointed his rifle at him. Reports are now emerging that the building was a staging area for police, and officers were inside while the man climbed up the side of the building. Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle calls the shooting unacceptable and is taking responsibility.
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service, and I need to make sure that we are performing a review and that we are giving resources to our personnel as necessary.
President Biden has ordered more security for the former president. Investigators are still searching for a motive behind the shooting, interviewing dozens of people and now examining the shooter's phone. Well, hours after a federal judge dismissed the classified documents case against former President Trump, the special counsel announced he'll file an appeal. Monday, U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon, based in Florida, ruled the Justice Department illegally appointed special counsel Jack Smith to the case. Cannon wrote that Attorney General Merrick Garland violated the Constitution because he did not get Senate approval and confirmation for the special counsel. Trump pleaded not guilty to a dozen felony counts accusing him of taking and storing classified documents and obstructing efforts to reclaim them. Well, turning overseas to the fighting in Gaza, there are reports Hamas is looking at a possible major internal breach after Israel's targeted strike over the weekend. Still no confirmation on whether Hamas's number 2, Mohammed Def, was killed, but his subordinate, Rafa Salama, is confirmed dead. There are reports dozens of civilians were killed, leading to international criticism of Israel. Middle East analyst Bill Koenig told CBN News that it's the latest example of how Hamas puts civilians in danger by hiding among them.
Hamas has been using civilians for a very long time. Sinwar, Def, and other terrorists within Hamas are right there amongst the innocent civilians. And for the international community to bring this up is just hard to comprehend, how they can be so disconnected with the reality of how these terrorists use their own citizens, their innocent citizens, as shields to keep from being taken out.
A recent report from the New York Times details Hamas's methods, including hiding under residential neighborhoods and storing weapons in miles of tunnels. Above ground, they take cover in mosques and homes, hiding weapons in sofas and, Gordon, even a report inside a child's bedroom.
Well, it's all part of their strategy that they want to have civilian casualties. That is horrific to even say, but that is what they're doing. And they're doing it quite intentionally. Sinwar said that we have Israel right where we want them. And the whole propaganda campaign to magnify the deaths of civilians and to have repeating again and again the innocent children of Gaza. And it's all because of their tactic, where they want to put weapons in schools. They want to hide fighters in hospitals. They want to take over UNRWA UN relief work agencies and have their headquarters inside UN buildings. They want to do all of these things to force Israel to strike them there and then engage in a propaganda campaign to turn the world's opinion against Israel. It's all part of their plan. This is what they wanted to do. Why hasn't the international community risen up and absolutely condemned it? It's a war crime to use civilians as shields. Let's recognize that and recognize Israel has no choice. If you're going to do these things and launch attacks like they launched on October 7 and then vow, we're going to do this again and again and again until you don't exist, what choice does Israel have? They have to strike back. They have to defend their own territory. I hope you, our viewers, are educated on this. We've been trying so hard to let you know the Gaza Ministry of Health is a propaganda arm of Hamas. It's all part of their terror tactics. They're playing a much larger game than just attacking on October 7th. They were very intentional, and they're very intentional now. And the people that are really suffering are the people of Gaza, and they're suffering because of their own government. They're the ones that elected Hamas to lead them. It's been almost 20 years now. Once Hamas got in power, they canceled all further elections. That's never going to happen again under their watch. And now we're going to literally enslave our own population, use them as human shields, take all of the humanitarian money that the world community is giving to feed them. We're not going to feed them. We're going to buy weapons. That has been their operation for now 2 decades. Can it please stop? And can it please stop on our watch? And can we be resolute that never again will there be a genocide of the Jewish people? Israel has a right to exist. They have a right to exist in their homeland. That has been recognized again and again by the UN, by the international community. Let us stand with Israel.